I gave you each a little card or paper with a spiritual thermometer on it. Here it is. You each have a paper, and here is my wonderful representative of the spiritual thermometer. And the reason that I want to talk about the spiritual thermometer and the ego is on my journey, I found it very difficult to discover what was my ego personality and what was God in me and how I could sort all this stuff out. Because our ego is something that is so close to us that we can't sometimes go beyond it. And it's an important part of our evolution of our soul, because we began as this simplest consciousness and moved into what we call self-consciousness. And when I say self-consciousness, I mean we began to recognize that we were a self and we were evolving. And that is when we were connected with our first ego. The ego is there to help us to experience the third dimension, which is called the opposites. In the third dimension, we live in the opposites. We live in fear, we live in joy, we live in sorrow, we live in hope. We live in all the many experiences that we have in the opposites. And the opposites are there for one purpose, and that is to help us to get judgment, and it uses the ego to it judges, it evaluates, it does all these wonderful things. But the problem with the ego that it thinks it is everything. It empowers itself to be everything. It starts to live its life as a fullness of who we think we are. It is not our real self. It is our limited self. And only as we can move and recognize the ego part of ourselves can we ever move into the next dimension of being, which is the Christ dimension, the fourth dimension, it's the Buddhic dimension. It just depends on what your background is, what you would call it. I simply call it the fourth dimension, because the third dimension is where we learn, our souls develop, our souls become talented in some aspect or another. We have all these abilities that we are accruing from the other lifetimes. But we've also had different egos, just like we had different personalities. So every incarnation we had, we got a personality and we got an ego that was cooperating with our personality. So this is what's come with you. You have got an ego that came to help you to develop this personality self of yours into another aspect of finding your real self. And this is why I created this spiritual thermometer, because I began to understand, as I was trying to let go of my ego self and move into my real self, I truly didn't know what to do or how to do it. So this spiritual thermometer has been my best friend in so many ways. Of all the things that I did, my 7 steps and my spiritual thermometer are probably my favorites that have helped me the most on my journey. Top. But the reason this has been such an important thing for me is that once I started to realize, when I got down below into my ego, I could not make any wise decisions. And so I put my little spiritual thermometer on my refrigerator, and I had it on my kids' notebooks too, so that they could take them to school. They weren't this pretty, because Lynn put this together, and it's much prettier than the one I put together. But it's the thing that helped me, because I checked myself out every single day. Because you know, you always walk into your refrigerator to look at something, so you're going to see your refrigerator door. And my kids all saw the refrigerator door. And I could say, okay, where are you coming from? Are you coming from here? Are you coming from here? I want to know where you're coming from. And it was very helpful in raising my kids, because they say, they even call up now and say, Mom, I'm a 2, and I'm dropping down to a 1. Help me. Okay? And so it's wonderful. They're 40 years old, 50 years old. They call me, you know, where am I on the spiritual thermometer? Oh, boy, I'm a 2.5, and I'm drowning. Gosh, then that's information that's good and important for you to know, because that means that you're observing yourself. You are observing yourself. That's why I push so hard at you to be the observer of self. Don't get lost in yourself. Be the observer. Because the more you're the observer of self, the freer you're going to be to observe that ego and its behavior. Its behavior for attention. Its behavior for who it thinks it is. And your ego goes through many, many changes throughout your lifetime as far as what it feels about itself. It may feel great about itself when it's in high school, but my gosh, it gets married and it starts to feel not so good, or maybe it gets a job and then you're not feeling as good about yourself as you did in high school when you were the track star or the beauty queen or maybe the cheerleader. Whatever it was that you did, maybe the top student in your class or maybe the bottom student of your class, didn't matter. Whatever you did is at that point of your life. Then as you move into other aspects of your life, your ego has a different kind of change that takes place within you. And as it has this little change that happens, you start to see things differently. And you start to observe your life in a more critical parent starts coming out in your head. You start criticizing yourself far more than you need to. It's good to watch yourself, but don't be critical. And I don't want that observer of yours becoming a critical parent, because that's no good either. It has to be the adult. It has to come in as the adult, the clear-thinking adult. That's what it needs to. If you find that your observer is beginning to become the critical parent in your head, oh, you didn't do this right, you didn't do that right, oh, boy, all that stuff, then you know that it is the critical parent in you, the critical part of the ego, and not the real you, the real part of you. Because this is what we need to let go of. And this is why not many people want to hear this. You know, most of us are very happy with our egos. Like Jane was. She was very content and happy with her ego until God got a hold of her, you know, and started shaking me loose. But I wanted God ever since I was 5 years old. I wanted a relationship with God, and God heard me and knew that it was time for me to start moving into that aspect of myself. So it's all about being in integrity with your soul. Not your ego is never in integrity. It just dances around, and it's the more I saw my ego, I just thought I got so I couldn't stand it, because boy, it got so loud and clear in my head that it was what it was, that it's just like, oh my God, I said that. Oh my God, I couldn't have done that. That was my ego, and I don't want that to be a part of me. I want that to be behind me. So if you take this home with you, your little paper, and put it someplace where you're going to be able to see it, I would change it, when I realized I wasn't checking it out anymore, I would change it and put it in the bathroom, or put it in my bedroom, or put it in the living room. Oh, I put it on the television. I pasted it right, I put tape and put it on the TV, and the kids would say, "Get that down, Mother." And I said, "Not until you're up to a 10, then I'll take it down." And boy, they sat to it right away. They wanted their TV program. But there's all kinds of little fun ways you can use this, and be creative. You'll be surprised what you'll come up with, because your kids, if you have kids, or your wife, or your boyfriend or girlfriend or whatever, it's wonderful, because when they're down there And it's the easiest thing just to say, oh, let's see, I think you're right down here. How can I help you get up here? That way you're not saying, oh, look at you, you're doing this wrong. You can just say, hey, I think we're down here. I think we're both down here. And I'm a little worried here. And I don't want to stay down here. Let's see if we can't meditate and get up here. And let's talk about this subject that we need to talk about when we're here, not when we're here. Because when we're here, we're in our egos, and we have to fight it out. I'm right, you're wrong. And then if you give in, you feel like you didn't say enough about yourself to win the argument. And you go over it 10 times in your head that you should have said this, you should have done that. And now let's start another argument, because now I know what I will say when it happens again. You know, those are the fun things that we do with ourselves. So anyway, this is my very special tool. I give it to you with love and compassion and joy from my heart to your heart, because it's brought me through many a challenge, many a challenge.